Today is Monday, October 26th, and here is an overview of what we are going to cover today for Block 3 in the afternoon class. So this is a remote class, and you are going to be looking at information about autopsies. People, if they're deceased at a crime scene, they are part of the crime scene, and so their bodies will be processed as well, just like other evidence. So we're going to just briefly touch upon that, and then you're going to watch Dr. G, Medical Examiner. It's an episode. She is a medical examiner over in Florida, and she's had a television program for a long time, and very entertaining. It looks at the role of a medical examiner in determining the cause, mechanism, and manner of death. So I want to go over just a few things with you here, and then it's up to you to watch the video and take notes. A few announcements. We are having the Chapter 2 test next Monday, November 2nd. So this week is in preparation for that upcoming test. You can see that there is a study guide for the chapter test. It is not homework. I'm going to click into it.
Hey, Jaeger.
So this is not homework. It is just something for you to work through. It shows the 8 items for Chapter 4 on CSI, crime scene investigation, that you have been introduced to and had a lab on. So we are also looking at Chapter 14, Death and Autopsies, and that's what today is focused on. But you'll want to go over these items to make sure that you understand the material that will be on the test. It's 50 questions, multiple choice, true and false. So work on this throughout the week, and don't wait until Sunday night to work on this, because that's never an effective strategy at getting ready for a test. So I'm going to move over to Chapter 14, Death and Autopsies, and I will click into that textbook here in a minute. But I'm going to go down to number 17, Cause, Mechanism, and Manner of Death. This is a website link, and when people are born, they are having a birth certificate, but you also will have a death certificate. It is the official report as to the manner of death, and there are basically 4 categories. Someone dies naturally, just their body breaks down either by an organ or heart attack, things of that nature. So something biological causes a death. And then secondly, an accident. Third, suicide. Fourth, homicide. And sometimes when the medical examiner is trying to determine one of these 4, it can be difficult to put it into one category. So they do not want to do number 5, undetermined, but sometimes it could take months for test results of toxicology to come back to see if it was in fact biological. If there's some chemical in the body that is evident that there's a disease, or maybe it would be accidental, like a drug overdose. So things like that will clear up the confusion as to whether it's natural or accidental. And many times a homicide is going to be confused with a suicide. They're trying to hide their crime, and so put the gun in the deceased hand and make it look like they shot themselves or something of that nature. So the evidence will probably suggest that it's one or the other. But occasionally it is undetermined. And while they're working on it, it still might be pending if they're still waiting on test results. Now, the title of this is Cause, Mechanism, and Manner. And you can see right here, the cause of death is the disease or the injury that produces the body's disruption. that is going to result in death. So here's the example of a gunshot wound to the chest. So the gun is the cause, the gunshot. The mechanism of death is the biological or physiological, and they use the word derangement, but that means the physical damage that results in the death. So in that case of the gunshot, that is the cause. The mechanism is that they would bleed to death, and that word exsanguination is defined as extreme blood loss. So understand the difference between cause, mechanism, and manner of death. Clicking into the chapters, they're underlined, these are also hyperlinked, it will take you to the chapter. And chapter 4 is about, I didn't mean 4, I meant 14. So I need to fix that link because it does say 4 when I clicked on 14. So I will have to go to the home page here and click on the textbook link, e-textbook, chapter 14. And this chapter goes over the difference between a medical examiner, a coroner, and a pathologist. A pathologist is a specialist who is a medical examiner with expertise to further analyze at the microscopic level the issue with cells not functioning properly or determining that there is a disease in the cell, tissue, or organ. And a coroner is someone that is going to be doing the paperwork of death, but not really figuring out the cause, mechanism, and manner. So in some smaller cities, rural areas, it might be clear as to the reason why someone has died, and so the coroner will be that one that does the death certificate. But the medical examiner is a medical practitioner who is a doctor, gone to medical school, and they are just working on the deceased instead of live people. So when you watch Dr. G Medical Examiner, that is a good case for what a doctor looks like when they're working in the morgue. The stages that someone goes through after death is on the screen right here. So generally understand the step by step. Sometimes these are marked in hours, sometimes days, sometimes weeks. But know the general order of things here. In the second semester, we're going to come back to death and decay when we're talking about the insects that are part of the advanced decay and the active decay. So it says the bacteria and the maggots break through the skin, and they're the ones that do the majority of the decomposition. And depending on the weather and circumstances, that could be a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We're focusing in on the autopsy, and postmortem means after death. It all starts with an external examination before the medical examiner is going to examine the body. If this is part of a crime scene, then the CSI lab will bring their tools to the morgue and they will collect evidence off the body. It might be a hair and tissue sample. It could be scrapings under the fingernail. They'll examine the external body, and then they may work on the body for a good day before it's turned over to the medical examiner, who will do the internal examination. Now, the medical examiner also does an external examination, but they're not so concerned about maintaining evidence. So they'll wash the body, drain it of blood and everything, and they're trying to get at the cause and the mechanism of death. It's worthwhile looking over the cavities of the human body and the planes of dissection farther down on the screen for your general knowledge. But this is not part of the test, so you're not going to see definitions like this on the test. Just know the sequence that an autopsy goes through. But like I said, it's really good for you to know anterior, posterior, dorsal, ventral, distal, proximal, superficial, things like that. This is kind of common knowledge in the English language about positioning. You do need to know the types of mortis. Algor mortis is the change in temperature of a body after death. It's generally 1 degree Celsius per hour. It certainly does matter about wind and temperature at that rate of decline with the body's temperature, but you can go with generally 1 degree. And there's a difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit, but if you remember 1 degree, they're pretty close between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So there are tables for knowing the difference and based on the weather, how fast the rate of cooling is. But they say 2 degrees the first hour and then 1 degree every hour after that. The body will go down to room temperature. Rigor mortis is the stiffening of muscles. Every muscle in the body will contract with all of the chemistry primed and ready with the ATP to fire off muscles. So after death, there's no nerve impulses. So gradually, it takes several hours. Usually hits full rigor within about 12 hours, and that will last another 12 hours going into the second day. Then all of the chemistry is used up in the muscles and the body will go limp again. Pallor mortis is since the heart stops beating, there's no blood to the surface, and so you lose the red tinge to the skin and it becomes pale and white looking. And livor mortis is important in forensics because it can show that a body has been moved after death. So again, after the heart stops beating, all the blood is going to pool to the lowest point in gravity. And so if they died while they're laying on their back, you're going to have pink, purplish, dark red coloration from the pooling of the blood and bruising occurring if they're lying on an object, or you'll see pressure points. Then if the body had been turned over and laying on their stomach and the pooling is on the back, then now you know that that's not the position that they died in. So look over the rest of this information here about what anthropologists can do, how they can assist with autopsies, and we've learned a little bit about what the bones can say as far as the age, the sex, sometimes race, and definitely can see skeletal injuries. There's been a knee replacement, things like that. You might be able to tell if there's been healing of bone fractures and things like that. And checking records of someone, then it can help ID. And there are differences between genders with the birth canal for females, so it's a much wider opening in the pelvis, for example, and a few other anatomical anthropology changes. In the second semester, we will go through entomology, and this is what a larval mass looks like, and this is where the decomposition can get sped up really quickly. So we will come back to that in the second semester. So I wanted to give you just a quick overview of that, and I'm going to make available to you one additional video, and it will be posted here on our agenda so that you can watch that too. We watched it in the morning session, and so the homework is going to be watching the Dr. G Medical Examiner video, taking notes on it. If I click into it, it just says take bullet notes, but make sure you have headings in here. This is a really interesting video on the 5 common ways that people die prematurely. So she's done over 5,000 autopsies, and so she sees a lot of instances where people did not have to die. So accidental situations that people find themselves in, or not taking care of their biology or listening to their body's ailments. So go ahead and give some headings to these notes on the top 5, and then you can do bullets, but try to go for full, complete sentences. Don't forget the heading at the top of the page will say Dr. G, How Not to Die, and put your name and date on the top of your paper as well. On Thursday, we're going to be looking at the Iceman murder mystery, one of the oldest known murder victims that has an autopsy to determine the cause of death. And this guy is from the Ice Age. So really fascinating. We're going to be doing that on Thursday. And then also looking into ways to get yourself ready for next week's test. In the meantime, if you're interested in joining us for our tutor session this Wednesday, we will have a general tutoring session from 10:20 to 10:40 on Kaltura. You can sign up for that, or you can just show up through Kaltura. If you're interested in a personal meeting to go over your grades and your situation, you definitely can do that by signing up through the Canvas calendar. How you sign up for these is not shown here, so I'm going to make an announcement so that you can see that. I did do that for my biology class because they're freshmen, but you might know that you click over into the calendar, view the calendar, and if you look at the agenda for the 28th, you're going to see that there's a 10 and a 10:10 time slot, and there's a button on your screen that says Find Appointments. And you just click into it and sign up for that. All right, that's going to do it for this video. So go ahead and take care of the Dr. G Medical Examiner video notes. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Stay safe. And let's pray that this fire doesn't get any worse and that they get it under control.